Hi, I'm Judith Kaluzny, and I'm the author of the Marriage License Handbook. And it's just about the size of the motor vehicle department handbook for drivers. And what this is the Marriage License Handbook is the rules of the road for being married. Not only what you need in order to get married, but what your legal obligations are after you're married. You ought to know what applies to you, what laws apply to you when you're married. It just might surprise you. I thought of writing a license book after I read about Michael Pollan's getting a hunting license. He had to take a 14-hour class and a 100-question quiz, and then I thought, well, to get a driver's license, you have to have the eye test and the road test and the written test. To get a marriage license, where were your mother and father born, and give me $56. So I figured for this life-changing event, and hopefully lifetime event, people at least ought to know what the rules are. So that's how it came. Ignorance is not bliss. Well, when they say ignorance is bliss, the other part of that, where ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise. So in getting married, ignorance is not bliss. I was a lawyer for 43 years, although about 25 years of that I just did mediation. I didn't go to court anymore. Court for divorces is disaster. In any case, as a lawyer for people being married, I found that many people did not totally understand the property rules. Many people, educated, intelligent people, thought that once you got married, everything you owned became overnight community property. That's just not so. Once you get married, your separate property stays separate unless you do some action to convert it to community property. It's not an automatic thing. And the other thing is that when you're married, the basic rule about work is that your earnings are community property. You can change that. That's the California default rule. You can change it. You can keep your earnings separate if you have a proper written agreement. And I had one couple that wanted to keep their earnings separate because they were going to live with wife's parents, and wife was paying the mortgage on her parents' house as rent. And if she was paying the mortgage with her earnings that were community property, the married couple would have a community property interest in the house. So husband was a husband-to-be. They were agreeable that they didn't want that. They wanted the house to stay her parents' sole property. So we did a written agreement and happily ever after. Another thing that people don't realize is that you can do a written agreement to change the California default rules after marriage. You don't have to do a prenup, you can do a postnup. One woman that came to me for divorce had a very successful business she had been working in for 11 years. When she started it, she went to see a lawyer and said she wanted the business to be her separate property. She says the lawyer told her, oh no, it can't be separate property. And it could. It could. That was bad advice. If they had a written agreement between them, the husband could have signed in writing that he agreed that her business would be her separate property. The other thing about my career, like I say, when I learned about mediation, I quit litigation. And the way I learned about mediation was that a friend of mine who had a PhD in sociology took mediation training, and she wanted a lawyer consultant to assist her with mediation. And pretty soon I started sitting in with her in the whole thing, not just consulting. And then I started taking mediation training. And so I finally just gave up litigation altogether. Actually, litigation is the default process to get a divorce And you don't have to go that way. There are alternatives. And I suggest you look into, if any of you listening are thinking of splitting up, do not do it through litigation. Go to a mediator.